You don't find the land finds you. That's what old Jarra told me the first day I met him, standing in the middle of the red desert, barefoot, with a voice that carried like wind over sand. I didn't know it then, but that man would change how I understood this country and what it means to truly belong somewhere. I was a young journalist back then, sent to write a short piece about cultural preservation and remote communities. That's what the assignment said. To me, it sounded simple. A few interviews, some pictures, and a flight home. But when the pickup truck stopped in a small town called Waruna, and I saw Jarra sitting by a campfire, humming something ancient, I knew this wasn't going to be simple at all. He was one of the last songmen of his people, a keeper of what they called the Songlines. I'd read about them before, how ancient Aboriginal peoples mapped the entire continent through music and stories. Every rock, tree and waterhole had a verse. The songs weren't just songs, they were maps, histories, memories. When he sang, the desert spoke. He said, "Walk with me tomorrow. I'll show you the old road. But don't bring your camera first, bring your ears." The next morning, before sunrise, we started walking. The sand was cold underfoot, the horizon glowing like fire. He didn't say much, he just hummed softly, long, rhythmic tones that seemed to breathe with the land. Every now and then he'd point to a stone, a ledge, or dried riverbed and sing a line. Each line, he said, was a memory of someone who had walked that path long before roads or fences existed. You follow the song, you never get lost, he told me. And if you stop singing, the land forgets you. That line stuck in my head for days. As we walked, I started to understand what he was doing wasn't just remembering a song. It was keeping the world alive. Each melody was a thread connecting people, land, and time itself. He called it keeping the stories breathing. At night, we'd sit by the fire and he'd tell me how his grandfather taught him every verse, every rhythm, how they used to walk for weeks across country, trading stories for food, songs for water, silence for respect, and how slowly those voices began to fade. He said, "Kids today, they listen to city songs. They forget the earth has its own music." He smiled when he said it, but there was sadness behind it. The kind that comes from watching something sacred slip away inch by inch. A few days later, I asked him if he ever thought about leaving, moving closer to town, maybe teaching music in a school. He laughed. He said, "The school's right here." He tapped the ground. "This country's my classroom. Every dune, every bird, every wind knows my name." That night, a storm rolled in. The wind howled through the desert and the sky flashed white. I woke up to the sound of singing. Low, steady, defiant. Jarra was standing in the rain, facing the storm, singing louder than I'd ever heard. The sound wasn't just music, it was power. It felt like the earth itself was answering back. In the morning, everything was calm. He looked tired, but peaceful. He said, "The storm listens if you do. Everything has a rhythm. You just got to find yours." When I flew back to Sydney a week later, I couldn't stop thinking about him. In the city, surrounded by glass and noise, everything felt offbeat. I kept hearing echoes of his songs, faint, like they were buried under concrete. Months passed. I wrote the article. It did well. "The last keeper of the Songlines," the headline read. But something about it didn't sit right. It was factual, polished, and completely hollow, because what I'd written wasn't his story. It was my version of it, stripped of the spirit he carried. So I went back. It took me 2 days to reach Waruna again. When I got there, the camp was quiet. The fire pit was cold. A young man stood nearby painting lines on a rock. He said, "You must be the one that wrote about Jarra." I nodded. He said, "He's gone," he said softly. Went walking a few weeks ago, said the songs were calling him home. My stomach dropped. Gone, just like that. But the young man smiled. He said he told me to keep walking, said the land never forgets a voice that sings with love. We walked to the edge of the dunes where the red earth meets the sky, and for a moment the wind carried a sound, faint but clear, a melody I'd heard before. I closed my eyes and it was like he was right there again, singing to remind me that stories don't die, they just change voices. Now, years later, I still play that recording sometimes. Not the one I published, but the one he made me promise to keep. Just his voice and the desert wind behind it. Every time I hear it, I feel smaller and somehow more whole, like the earth is still singing through him. If this story touched you, share it. Let someone else hear it. Because maybe, like Jarra said, when we tell stories, we help the world remember us. And if you believe that every tradition, every craft, every forgotten voice deserves to be heard, subscribe. That's what we do here. We keep the stories breathing. Next time, I'll tell you about the man who made light out of clay. You won't want to miss that one.